It's Halloween, and that means you're in store for a very spooky edition of Dave Knows Wrestling. But the most terrifying part of this whole thing is that, well, after so many years, I kinda ran out of Halloween-themed wrestling videos to do, so I had to resort to the most scary type of match there ever was. And that's the subject of this video, because today... A big thank you for the support over on Patreon to the Reflection of Perfection, JPS, and Freehand. Thanks to all of you as well as everyone else on Patreon. Your support makes a big difference. Thank you. WWE's Trick or Street Fight. I absolutely hate this match, but they keep doing it for some reason. And what's really gonna freak you out is that WWE has been doing this for more years than they were having Survivor Series as a Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving Eve tradition. And it's just about to go on for more years than the King of the Ring was a televised pay-per-view. But at least WWE had the decency to not make this an annual tradition every single year since its inception. Although they might have, because while I couldn't find anything on 2019 or 2020, I gotta be perfectly honest with you, I didn't do as much research on this as I normally would have because, well, I just won't subject myself to that kind of punishment. It's bad enough I had to sit through these the first time around. But if for some reason over the past decade you mostly ignore WWE around Halloween season because you're busy having a life or something, well, no need to brag. But I am going to take it out on you by telling you all about this completely terrible match. Alright, so the way this professional wrestling contest works is quite simple, and I do mean simple, as it's really just an excuse for some slapstick comedy, as the wrestlers just throw a bunch of food and garbage at each other, primarily pumpkins. And after at least 8 of these matches, it seems like they're force-feeding you more pumpkin than Starbucks every fall. But on a more serious note, I am beginning to wonder if perhaps Billy Corgan owns WWE as well as the NWA because of how often they keep smashing pumpkins. Now, let's begin with the first Trick or Street Fight, which occurred on Halloween night proper, and it saw Dean Ambrose taking on Antonio Cesaro on an episode of SmackDown. And right from the start, we were exposed to all the stupid gags that this match would do over and over again, such as seeing Cesaro humiliated by having to wear a jack-o'-lantern on his head. Gee, I wonder how there could be any fans out there who feel like Cesaro wasn't taken seriously in WWE. Oh, and as for Moxley, after watching this, it's clear that Mitch the Plant isn't the dumbest plant-related thing that Dean Ambrose had to endure. Oh, and if you're one of those defenders of Mitch the Plant, shut up, no one likes you. Alright, now on to October 29th, 2015, which saw Dolph Ziggler go against The Miz. Now, when it comes to the alleged A-lister, we're kinda used to seeing him get humiliated. Too bad his over-the-top selling really doesn't make it fun to watch. But I mean, come on, how else are they supposed to make The Miz versus Dolph Ziggler round 612 entertaining? This match still somehow isn't as embarrassing as that time that Dolph Ziggler got beat by Bill Goldberg over and over again. Oh, and while we're at it, believe it or not, Dolph Ziggler actually came out of this with a win. Alright, so now let's go from that match in 2015 in Phoenix, Arizona and go all the way to Hartford, Connecticut in 2016. And while previously we did feature former world champions or upper echelon talent, now we were resorted to Enzo Amore and Luke Gallows. Oh, and also this would be the first time that the match was featured on Raw instead of SmackDown. Now, while I'm not trying to disparage these two wrestlers, I think it's clear that there is a huge level jump here. And so, while previously this was embarrassing, at least you got to see upper level talent go against each other. But now, WWE was starting to treat the match as the joke that it was always meant to be. But no matter how low on the totem pole you are, a match still has to have a winner. And in this case, they chose to go with Enzo Amore, someone who's not even in WWE anymore, instead of the person that still is. However, as we're going to talk about later, this might be something of a theme with this match. But back onto this particular bout, because at least Luke Gallows can say that this is less humiliating than being Festus. I think, right? I mean, this is an upgrade, right? Is it? Anyway, doesn't matter, because Luke Gallows would wind up being the butt of this joke 2 years in a row. But for his second appearance, he would drag his tag team partner of Carl Anderson in on the act for the first ever tag team Trick or Street Fight. that saw the two of them take on Heath Slater and Rhino. And this time around, it was officially listed as the All Hallows Eve Trick or Street Fight. Not that I think it makes any difference. And by the way, Heath and Rhino won, and neither are in WWE anymore. Next, on Mischief Night 2018, it was back to SmackDown, and it was also back to Cesaro as he took on Big E. Yep, that's right, they're back onto using top talent again. But at least Big E would get a WWE Championship down the line. Now granted, this time around they did try to put a more hard-hitting version of the bout, which is not to say there wasn't still plenty of the goofy stupid comedy in this match, because of course there was. But as for this specific showing, at least there was one or two maybe somewhat decent hardcore spots that could justify wasting enough pumpkin to make a food pantry blush. That's right, remember that Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and there are plenty of starving people out there, so take that, those in need! Oh, and speaking of Thanksgiving, I personally am thankful that WWE took the next 2 years off from this horrible trick or street fight match. Again, that's as far as I know, because my light Googling really didn't show up anything for the next 2 years. And if they did have a match during that time, please don't tell me about it. Let me just live with this. But then the match would eventually make its return in 2021. Although I do have to say I'm kinda surprised by that, because this goofy nonsense seemed right at home during the Thunderdome era. But alas, WWE held off just one more year. This time it would feature Madcap Moss and Happy Corbin taking on the team of Rick Boogs and Shinsuke Nakamura, with Corbin, who's now on NXT, and Madcap Moss no longer with the company, coming out on top. And then there's last year when Matt Riddle took on Otis, and yet again this is another example of the winner of the Trick or Street fight no longer being with WWE. That's right, with the exception of this year which just happened, every single former winner of a WWE Trick or Street fight is not currently on the main roster. And on to this year where finally the women got to take part in this, as Natalya would square off against Chelsea Green. Take that, glass ceiling! And here we go again with another great talent having to get involved in this match. Oh Natty Neidhart, what have they done to you? Well, there you go, the history of WWE's Trick or Street Fight. Not that anyone was asking for it. Anyway, please let me know down in the comments section what other Halloween themed videos I could do that I haven't done already. That way, hopefully next year can be better. Anyway, regardless, please give this video a like and make sure you're subscribed to the Thinking Fans channel. I also want to thank all of my amazing Patreon supporters, and I want to thank you for watching. And as always, Dave knows. Happy Halloween!